Well, it's very difficult to see where the case goes from here, because the coroner at the very outset promised a wide-ranging and very thorough inquiry to investigate how Litvinenko died. And what's happened is the first thing was that the Foreign Secretary challenged his decision that a lot of the evidence should be heard in public. And now, even the bit of the evidence that the coroner, as it were, appeared to have won on, saying that it should be heard at the inquest, now it seems the Foreign Secretary has challenged that and he's won. So that means that even less evidence will be heard in public at the inquest than we thought a couple of months ago, and that wasn't very much.
And so really, why did the coroner originally rule or wish this evidence to be included in the inquiry in the first place?
Because he started out with what may, in retrospect, seem like a rather idealistic view, that he wanted to conduct an inquiry that was as open as possible. And initially he said that he doubted whether in the formal surroundings of an inquest were actually sufficient for the importance of this case. He said he thought that there ought to be a public inquiry, and that would enable more evidence to be heard. He was then overruled by the Home Secretary, who said no, it had to be a narrowly framed inquiry, and it had to be an inquest, not a public inquiry or investigation. So we were back to square one. Now it seems that even less evidence will be heard in public. And you have to ask, what is the purpose of holding this inquest at all, except to fulfill the formality of the law that says if somebody dies in mysterious circumstances, there should be an inquest.
The UK government, for its part, has cited national security grounds for wishing to exclude this evidence. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, the first response to that is to say, well, they wouldn't they? Because national security is the one thing that you can bring as a pretext without having to define anything further. But, of course, if you follow this case, then what you tend to read between the lines and say that what they don't want to come out is the extent of the contacts that there were admitted by Alexander Litvinenko's widow, and indirectly by the British intelligence services, that there were contacts between British security and Litvinenko. And it's the nature of those contacts, how they came about, what they dealt with, that I believe the British authorities don't want to come out. Some people say, and the sort of official line is that the British government doesn't want an amount of information to come out because it would make relations difficult with the Russian government. I find that difficult to believe personally, because I think relations are not so wonderful with the Russian government at the moment, that there is a huge amount to damage. And I also think it's a very convenient explanation because it basically lets the British Secret Services off the hook.
Are we ever going to get any closer in this case to actually knowing what happened?
Well, that's the depressing conclusion, really. The further it goes along, the less likely it looks that we're going to know even the very dim outline of what's known so far. So I have to be extremely pessimistic on this point. And I'm also not just pessimistic, but I think it reflects very badly on British justice. Litvinenko's widow and I differ absolutely on what may be the explanation, what may have lain behind her late husband's death. But on one thing we are absolutely united, which is that British justice ought to be able to get to the bottom of this case, and the fact that it doesn't, and doesn't look as though it's going to be able to, reflects extremely badly on our system. Personally, I'm just extremely disappointed in it.